Printed 3 copies instead of printing 1 copy, but you have 3 copies. Good morning. On behalf of the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Columbus, I'd like to welcome you to our Sunday service. I'm Pam Conley. I've been a member of the congregation since 2017. I sing in the Chalice Choir and have also served on the coordinating team, or CT for short. Let's begin our time together by acknowledging the land which holds us, home of the Adena, the Hopewell, the Wyandotte, the Miami, the Seneca, and the Cayuga. Gathered here and online, may we be grateful, thoughtful, and humble. Our opening song was written on a hot summer day in 1864 by Dr. Robert Lowry, pastor of Hanson Place Baptist Church in Brooklyn. He viewed his song, "Shall We Gather at the River," as a song of hope. In a more detailed account, Henry Barrage wrote, "The weather was oppressively hot and the author was lying on a lounge in a state of physical exhaustion. He was almost incapable of bodily exertion, and his imagination began to take wings. Visions of the future passed before him with startling vividness. The imagery of the apocalypse took the form of tableaux. Brightest of all were the throne, the heavenly river, and the gathering of saints. While he was thus breathing heavily in the sultry atmosphere of that July day, his soul seemed to take new life from that celestial outlook. He began to wonder why the hymn writers had said so much about the river of death and so little about the pure river of water of life. I invite you to rise in body and spirit and join in singing our opening song, "Shall We Gather at the River?" It is number 1046 in the Teal Hymnal. If you're at home, feel free to sing as loud and strong as you wish. If you're here in the worship center, sing softly. Shall we gather at the river, where my angels be withdrawn, with its crystal tide forever, flowing by the throne of God. Yes, we'll gather at the river, the beautiful
Good morning. Get all set up here, get the mask off, the glasses on. I think we're good to go. My name is Reverend Dr. Marian Stewart. It is my pleasure to serve this congregation as senior minister. Kelly usually does this welcoming, but she's homesick, so we extend our thoughts and prayers for her healing. It's very good to see you here this morning and feel the presence of all those joining us online. Thank you so much for being here. And if you consider yourself a visitor and you're with us in person, please stop by the welcome table in the lobby, and we have a gift for you, and we'll welcome you. If you're online, make sure that you check in, sign in there as well. Don't forget that you can access our order of service, joys and sorrows form, and our donation page by scanning our QR code. It will appear on various slides, and just scan it and you'll be right in there. Few quick reminders. This afternoon we have a Pegasus early music concert right here in the sanctuary. I am so excited that music fills these walls again. So come, 4 o'clock, everyone is welcome, wear your mask. Also, the Bread Annual Assembly will be held online on Monday, or you can gather here in this room for a Zoom watch party. We know how to do that. The main agenda is to select from one of 3 areas of interest: neighborhood safety, mental health, or environmental injustice. One of those areas will be the focus for this year's work. Also, our monthly theme packets holding history are available at the table in the Welcome Hall, so make sure you pick one up. Let us center ourselves as we listen to Nathan play our prelude.
Thank you, Nathan. That was beautiful. If you're joining us online, I invite you to bring your chalices closer so we may kindle our flames together. Today, Caroline Mocharski, a member of I asked her how to say it, and then I blew it. Ugh. A member of our youth group will help us light our chalice. Our chalice lighting this morning is from Penny Hackett Evans. Each of us brings a separate truth here. We bring the truth of our own life, our own story. We don't come as empty vessels, but as full people, each with our own story and our own truth. We seek to add to our truths and add to our stories. This room is rich with truth, rich with experience. All manner of people are here, needy, joyful, frightened, anxious, bored. We all bring our truth with us. May we all recognize the truth and the story in other lives than our own. May we hear and honor the truths that we all bring as we gather together. Together we have truths, together we have a story, together we are a community. Our chalice is lit.
And now Amber's going to share a story with us, and just so you know, are reminded, it's not a children's story, it's a story for all ages, and I think you'll find that true right here too. Take it away, Amber.
Good morning. As Marian already said, I'm Amber Scott. I serve as your Director of Religious Exploration. It's a little cold and snowy today, but even so, we have activities for children happening outside on the SYC playground. And don't worry, if you need to go inside and take a break from the snow, you can totally do that. This morning, I would like to extend my gratitude and thanks to all of the children, youth, parents, and elders who have chosen to get vaccinated. I'm so excited. It's been especially fun to see videos and pictures popping up of the young people from our congregation starting to get vaccinated now that a pediatric vaccine is available. I'm so excited to celebrate with all of you. Today's story is called When I Was Young in the Mountains, written by Cynthia Ryland and illustrated by Diane Good. When I was young in the mountains, grandfather came home in the evening covered with the black dust of a coal mine. Only his lips were clean, and he used them to kiss the top of my head. When I was young in the mountains, grandmother spread the table with hot cornbread, pinto beans, and fried okra. Later, in the middle of the night, she walked through the grass with me to the Johnny house and held my hand in the dark. I promised never to eat more than one serving of okra again. When I was young in the mountains, we walked across the cow pasture and through the woods carrying our towels. The swimming hole was dark and muddy, and we sometimes saw snakes, but we jumped in anyway. On our way home, we stopped at Mr. Crawford's for a mound of white butter. Mr. and Mrs. Crawford looked alike and always smelled of sweet milk. When I was young in the mountains, we pumped pails of water from the well at the bottom of the hill and heated the water to fill round tin tubs for our bath. Afterwards, we stood in front of the old black stove, shivering and giggling, while grandmother heated cocoa on top. When I was young in the mountains, we went to church in the schoolhouse on Sundays, and sometimes walked with the congregation through the cow pasture to the dark swimming hole for baptisms. My cousin, Peter, was laid back into the water and his white shirt stuck to him, and my grandmother cried. When I was young in the mountains, we listened to frogs sing at dusk and awoke to cowbells outside our windows. Sometimes a black snake came in the yard, and my grandmother would threaten it with a hoe. If it did not leave, she used the hoe to kill it. 4 of us once draped a very long snake, dead of course, across our necks for a photograph. When I was young in the mountains, we sat on the porch swing in the evening, and grandfather sharpened my pencils with his pocket knife. Grandmother sometimes shelled beans and sometimes braided my hair. The dogs lay around us, and the stars sparkled in the sky. A bobwhite whistled in the forest. Bob, bob, bobwhite. When I was young in the mountains, I never wanted to go to the ocean, and I never wanted to go to the desert. I never wanted to go anywhere else in the world, for I was in the mountains. And that was always enough. The end. In this story, the author gives us a peek into her wonderful childhood growing up in Appalachia. Though her family's way of being in the world might appear simple to some, she reflects that it was enough. The warmth of family love and the beauty of the mountains shone through in everything they did. As we move into our service today, I invite you to reflect on the places that feel like home. Children and families who would like to participate in Outdoor Sunday School are now invited to head towards the playground during this next song.
Sometimes you have to do things more than once. Life's like that, isn't it? But our chalice is lit, and I also want to tell you that if you would like to participate in our joys and sorrows and caring meditation a little bit later in our service, you're welcome to use a QR code, scan it, and you'll go to a form where you can submit a joy or sorrow. If we get it in time, we will read it aloud. Bob and one of our caring ministers will read it out loud. Is that Sharon? Glasses on, off, yep, close. Birthdays are awesome, right? We also have several pastoral listeners with us today. You'll recognize them with the purple stole, and they will be happy to listen to you anytime during the service, after the service, or during the week. Just let us know. And now, I'd like for Nathan to play a short interlude, and then we're going to invite you into a very special time of our service. As we get set up for our story about Appalachian, Linda is in place, but we've got a few things to do first. I want to invite you to sing a classic American folk hymn, What Wondrous Love. You'll find it number 18 in your gray hymn book. This song is based on old sea chanty about Captain Kidd, a 17th century Scottish pirate. Who knows what life was like for the hard-living seafarers, but this song gives an answer for the pain. This song reflects on its history and of its Celtic influence. Let us sing, What Wondrous Love. I invite you to rise, embody your spirit, and sing along with our chalice choir.
What wondrous
As we explore our monthly theme of holding history, we use the lens of geography and story. In Wildland, Evan Osnos looks at the stories we tell ourselves. He travels the country, often going local in his search for answers. He spends time writing about several regions, including Appalachia. He once lived and worked in Clarksburg, West Virginia. In the introduction to Wildland, Osnos writes, "In this narrative, I attempt to tie together the disparate experiences of being American, to determine how the course of lives intersected in ways we often overlooked in the disorienting rush of those 20 years. I focus most of all on the connections, often subterranean, that give us a more integrated understanding of our present. In conversation with locals, we spoke mostly about their lives, our towns, and the choices they made, and the choices that were made beyond their control. We spent far less time talking about the politics on the front page than about the underlying questions that tied these divergent lives together. How did they explain the triumphs and catastrophes in their lives? Who was responsible, and what were the costs of that responsibility? Who told them the truth, and who lied? What did they expect from their government, and what did they get? How safe did they feel in their bodies, their homes, their neighborhoods? What ultimately did we owe one another as citizens of a political commons?" Osnos concludes, "Every country hands down the stories people tell themselves about will and fate, freedom and belonging. But in the United States, the matter carries an extra burden because our defining myth rests on the prospect of wrestling destiny into submission, the aspiration that all children can rise to the top through work and talent, no matter their background. France was a land, England was a people, but America, F. Scott Fitzgerald wrote in 1929, is a willingness of the heart."
Thank you, Michaela and Spirit of Life Choir. That was awesome. Get us in the mood here. Our sermon topic today, Stories and Lessons from Appalachia, are the product of our auction. You see, each year I put in an item in the auction for bid for sermon topic of your choice. Judy Clean won it 2 years ago, and I believe, if I was correct in remembering, it was on open doors. And this year, Linda Thompson won the honors of selecting the topic, and she said, you know, I'm from Appalachia, and I want to tell my story. So we're going to do that today. Linda, would you introduce yourself, please?
Okay, I'm Linda Thompson. I'm a member of the Chalice Choir. I'm a historian, and I'm from southeastern Ohio. I bought Reverend Marian's sermon at the auction. The topic is Ohio Appalachia and Appalachia in general. Some say Appalachia. For those old enough to remember things like Little Abner and the Beverly Hillbillies, they showed a very sort of dumb view of people from the hills. The stereotype was that we were dumb, not well educated, and lazy. I want to change that view. Okay. There are a lot of us here. According to the book, A is for Appalachia, the people who settled there are from England, Ireland, Scotland, and Germany. The first ones were the Cherokee. I hit all of them. I'm a Heinz 57. I was born in southeastern Ohio in a small village called Berne, B-E-R-N-E. My paternal grandparents ran the general store, which is now gone. A few miles from Berne is my mother's family farm, homesteaded by my great-great-grandfather in the early 1830s. It still remains in the family. Place and the land are very important to us. The hills, the mountains, and the valleys, beautiful and eternal.
This land is beautiful and eternal. The hills of Appalachia get into your heart, into your bones, and into your soul. As I drive south, I feel like I'm going home. Appalachia is a complicated history, however. It all began, at least for the white settlers, with immigration and migration. In his book, American Nations, Colin Woodard maps out these patterns across America that helped establish the character and culture of various regions. It's a fascinating read, and I highly recommend it. Here's a map of the eastern United States with the migration patterns. You see in there that the big white area in the center is Greater Appalachia. It's quite a large region. And right at its north edge, kind of where we are, is the Midlands, or what we know now as the Midwest. But this is how the migration pattern started, and the book tells you all about who they were and their cultures and stuff. And Sue, if you'll show us one more click, you'll see Ohio centered. Oops, go back one. Right there. Ohio and Columbus are right there. So you see Columbus is right on that edge of Appalachia and the Midwest. We're kind of in the border country. Now, maps are generalizations, but local folks tell me that Appalachian stops at I-70. But I'm not sure culture divides quite so easily. I also suspect something else might be at play, but I'll let you think about that on your own. As Nathan plays an interlude, we will get ready to listen to Appalachian stories.
The gossip on the school bus was that Mary, a prostitute, had had a baby that died immediately after birth. The local newspaper indicated that a graveside service would be held on Saturday afternoon at 2 o'clock at the Byrne Methodist Cemetery. 3 of us teenage girls thought it would be fun to go. I asked my grandparents for permission. The other girls were visiting my hometown, so we walked to the cemetery. 3 people were already there. Mary, her sister Nellie, and the undertaker, no minister. Mary thanked us for coming and asked us if we would like to see the baby. The other girls said no, and they ran off to wait for me. Why else would I be there but to take part in their little ceremony? The baby was a girl, dressed in a white gown with a little white bonnet. I said something about how pretty she was and stepped back. Mary, with tears in her eyes, took my hand and looked into my eyes. She smiled and thanked me over and over. As I stepped away to join the other girls, I realized that I was a stand-in for my grandparents and that Mary was a mother who had lost her child, no matter she was a prostitute. The other girls giggled about how funny it was as we walked away. But I had learned a lesson that I would never forget.
A lesson about showing up for all of us. Linda, I believe you have another story.
Okay. I did not realize how people from Appalachia or Appalachia were looked down upon until my freshman year at Ohio State, when I discussed with the counselor changing my major. Not asking me why I wanted to change my major, he asked me where I went to high school. I told him Summerfield High School in southeastern Ohio. Immediately, mind you, he told me I might possibly complete a bachelor's degree, but I would never go any higher than that. I canceled my next appointment. He called to find out why. I said I had made my own decision. I switched colleges and majors. Years later, a colleague in Columbus schools, who was from the Appalachian area, told me that he didn't know he was deprived until his professors told him he was. None of the professors checked our grades, considered our test scores, or our performance. We were just hillbillies.
And I believe, Linda, you have gone beyond your bachelor's degree and have a doctorate. Is that correct?
That's correct. And from my little hometown, there are 3 doctorates. My dad's cousin's sister's daughter. So there are 3 of us with doctorates in that little town that when I left, we had 50 people.
That's a pretty good percentage. Not bad for southeastern Ohio. Just kidding. You know, sometimes we all get stereotyped. As soon as we open our mouths, it happens. We get clumped into a framework that defines us. Oh, you're a hillbilly. Oh, you're from the South. Or, I don't know, you're a Yankee. We said it a little bit more slurry in the South, but anyway, there you go. Stereotypes, right? The first college I attended, St. Mary's, was a private Episcopal all-girl high school and college. It was a magnet for local students with a good-sized mix of girls from wealthy families and from outside the region, even outside the country. This was a subset of the well-to-do, along with a few who were middle class. It was a perfect place for me, not because fellow students necessarily, but because of the education in books and in confidence. I remember one well-meaning teacher telling the class, "If you want to succeed, you'll have to lose that accent." Hollywood even gets in on the accents. Remember the scene from Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers in Let's Call the Whole Thing Off? You say potato, I say potato, you say tomato, I say potato, tomato, but also in this case, you say Appalachian and I say Appalachian. And let's not call that whole thing off. When I lived in Seattle, a friend was earning a doctorate degree in linguistics. One day she asked, "Where are you from?" And I said, "Kirkland?" She paused. She says, No. Where did you grow up?" I was born in Atlanta and grew up in North Carolina." That can't be," she responded. "You don't sound like that." So we dug down. My mother was raised in Virginia with an Old South accent, and my father was from Indiana. Logansport for Indiana fans here. Who were you closest to?" I responded, "My dad." And she said, "That's it." It seems that oftentimes our accents are picked up from the parent we identify with the most. Whew, the Southern only peeks out every now and then, y'all.
All through Appalachia, one finds coal and natural gas and oil. Mining companies came into the areas and stripped and dug coal and pumped the oil. When the supply ran out, the companies simply left, leaving the land uninhabitable. The people were no richer. Later laws were written in Ohio requiring the companies to reclaim the land. The Wilds near Cumberland is part of that reclaimed land. However, with fracking, there are few, if any, laws, and states differ on the requirements. Forests are cut down, and hilltops are leveled with concrete poured to produce transmission stations. The local people are not trained or hired. Only the local businesses make money. What will happen when the gas supply runs out? At a motel in my home county, I talked to two men from Maryland. They came to work with fracking. I asked them why companies did not train local people. They said it was too costly for the companies, and besides, it was simply greed. Fracking is happening all around our family farm. People realize that if the people around them sold the fracking rights to companies, they needed to do so too, or lose out. It is sad to see.
Stereotypes can be sad, funny, and costly. They can also hold you back. That's not just true for people, it's also true for regions as well. The environment is a serious issue, and the backwoods of Appalachia have been scenes to some of our most atrocious devastations. From coal mining to strip mining, from chemical manufacturing to chemical dumping, from mountaintop removal to environmental degradation. Along the way, the people have been impoverished and humiliated. There's also a strong sense of pride in place and a sense of belonging. Appalachia is more than a region. It's a place in the soul. If we want to heal our nation, we might want to start here. Look beyond the judgments and see the person, the region, warts and all, because in them, their hills, there are gems. And it is from those gems, found in each person, regardless of their accent and how they sound, where they went to high school, or which city or holler they came from, that will shape our future and help us heal our divides. That's the only way we will begin to heal ourselves, our culture, and our environment. Thank you, Linda. I love your story. She's got a lot more. Don't worry. Just ask Linda, tell me another one, and she's got them. Your mind is sharp as can be, and you remember almost everything, including church history, personal history, regional history. Ask Linda, she's got it. Thank you very much for listening to our Appalachian and Appalachian stories, and blessed be, and amen.
Our church is a community of love, caring, and generosity. Together we work for a more just world. To offer our gifts and pay our promise pledges is to say yes, we are defined by our hearts and our deeper values. Our Share the Plate recipient for November is the Sedona Grace Foundation. Sedona Grace is a public charity that provides dog food and treats, also known as canine care packages, to families in need throughout Central Ohio food pantries. Our donations have a bigger impact when we give together. Regardless of your ability to contribute, we value your presence here. And thank you.
Thank you, Nathan. I'm Bob Mills, and I'm a member of the pastoral team, as well as one of the pastoral listeners today. And this is Sharon Hammersley, also one of the pastoral listeners today. I want to begin the caring meditation today with reflections on the opening hymn this morning. Shall we gather at the river? Shall we gather and hear each other's stories? Shall we gather to share our celebrations and our pain? Shall we find that wondrous love? Yes, it is here and all about. The hard edges and rough times are eased as friends gather around. And when friends gather around, the circle is unbroken. The songs we sing tell a story. They hold our lives, our losses, and our hopes, sometimes literally, sometimes metaphorically. We find ourselves in the lines and between the lines. Songs can be prayers, too. As we listen to the joys and sorrows that are in our hearts, let us hold each person in a spirit of love. Sharon?
During the week, we had 3 sorrows that members and friends of our congregation sent us. We send our healing thoughts to Kelly, who is the first U Director of Congregational Life. Kelly had a procedure and experienced complications. She and her partner Jay ask for extra loving kindness while Kelly heals. We send healing thoughts to Susan R. Susan is a longtime teacher and coordinator of the School for Young Children. She is undergoing treatment for breast cancer. We send caring thoughts to Jeannie R. She has been in Riverside Hospital since November 7th. She is receiving pain medications and an epidural for back pain. When she's discharged, she will go to short-term rehab. This morning, we had 2 joys reported. Christine says, "My family is healthy and my son Roland is thriving and learning. I'm so proud to be his mama." Jim and Daniel say, "We are thankful for a safe trip to Canada to see polar bears and the wondrous northern lights last week."
So may we hold these joys and these sorrows and those yet unspoken gently in our hearts. And when the time comes, let them flow along.
I invite you into a moment of silent meditation as I ring the temple bell. I will ring it again as we continue. Thank you, Bob, and thank you, Sharon. We are a caring community. Thank you for making it so. I close with these words by Colin Woodard. In his newer book, American Character, he writes, "The Republic is in turmoil. As I write this in 2016, Tens of millions of Americans fear that their democracy is under threat, that racism and bigotry are on the ascent, and that regional differences are hardening in a way that makes consensus building difficult to imagine. People of good faith from across the political spectrum wonder where we go from here. One place we go from here is to start right here. Value everyone. Welcome everyone. We have work to do together. And if I might, I'll leave you with one bit of advice. Y'all come back now, you hear? I couldn't resist it. I invite you now to rise and embody your spirit and join me in lightly singing our closing hymn, number 318 in our great hymnal, We Would Be One. While the tune is a familiar one, these words were written by biologist, UU minister, and youth group leader Samuel Anthony Wright. Let us sing.
If you have joined us online, I invite you to bring your chalice close so we can extinguish the flame together. As our service has concluded, please join our coffee hour outside the main entrance. Bring your mittens. If you're online, please use the Zoom link sent this morning to join our online coffee hour. This week's online coffee hour is hosted by our Board of Trustees. In person or online, all are welcome to join the conversation. Now let's join together in saying our chalice extinguishing words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of vision. As we go forth, let us heal and transform ourselves and our world through reason and love. Our chalice is extinguished. Please remain seated as our choir sings our benediction, and then Nathan plays our postlude. After the postlude, we look forward to seeing you outside for coffee hour. It's going to be in Beach Hall. And it's going to be in Beach Hall, I understand.